Alright, let's get right into it. If you've got your sights set on Australia, you need to hear this: the government is rolling out some of the biggest changes we've seen to its visa English test requirements in over a decade. And these changes, they kick in starting August 2025. So yeah, if you're planning your move, or even just kicking the idea around, you're gonna want to listen up seriously. The way you prove your English skills is about to get a complete overhaul, and knowing these new rules as well, it's make or break for your application, okay? So how are we gonna wrap our heads around all this? Don't worry, we're gonna break it down. First, we'll hit the one big headline change that impacts everyone. Then we'll dig into the new T scorecard, the actual numbers you need. We'll also look at some other surprising changes that go beyond just the scores. We'll lock down that super important August 7th deadline, and then we'll finish up with a solid game plan, so you know exactly what your next move should be. Alright, let's start with part 1, the big headline change. This is really the most important thing you need to get. Australia is officially moving away from that simple, single score we've all been used to for years. Yep, you heard that right, since 2014. The game was pretty straightforward, right? Just hit one target number like a 65 or a 79. Well, starting August 7th, 2025, that's all out the window. The PTE Academic test is now going to require different scores for each of the 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking, so that whole old way of thinking. So what does this new scorecard actually look like? In practice, let's dive into the nitty-gritty, the numbers, because this really paints a whole new picture of what they're looking for, okay? Just look at this table, especially at the proficient and superior levels. You know, the ones that snag you, those crucial 10 or 20 migration points? To get a superior score, you now need a 69 in listening, but you need to hit a whopping 88 in speaking. See the difference? This is the key takeaway, guys. You can't just rely on a high reading score to balance out a weaker speaking score anymore. Each skill, each score has to stand on its own. The best way to think about it is like a seesaw, okay? On one side, you've got listening and reading, and the scores you need there have actually gone down. I mean, for a superior score, the listening requirement drops by 10 points. That's huge, but on the other side of the seesaw, the scores for writing and speaking have shot way up. The government is basically screaming at us which skills they care about most now. And here it is, the single biggest jump. To get considered proficient in English, the speaking score now leaps from a 65 all the way to a 76. That is an 11-point increase. It's a massive new hurdle, and honestly, it demands a whole new level of prep. And for you high achievers, those aiming for that top superior tier, the challenge is just as real. The speaking score there climbs from a 79 to an 88. That's a 9-point jump. That pushes what's required into a truly advanced level of fluency, no joke. But wait, there's more. It's not just about the numbers. On your final score report, the entire testing experience is getting a shakeup. We're talking brand new question types, a totally different way of scoring, and even some completely new tests being accepted. Speaking section is getting 2 totally new kinds of questions. First, you'll have to listen to a group discussion, about 3 minutes long, and then summarize it out loud. Then you'll hear a practical, real-world scenario, and have to give a 40-second spoken response. These new tasks add about 15 minutes to the exam, and you can see what they're doing. They're trying to test more realistic, everyday communication skills. And this is a really crucial point. This isn't just a computer-scored test anymore. For 7 of the key question types, we're talking about the essay, describe image, and even these new speaking tasks. Actual human experts are now going to be scoring your answers right alongside the AI. This is a huge philosophical shift. You know, they're moving toward a much more nuanced assessment of how you actually use the language. And hey, on the bright side, you're getting more choices. Starting in August 2025, Australia will also start accepting 3 new tests. The CELPIP General, which you might know from Canada, the LanguageCert Academic, and the Michigan English Test. So this gives you more options to find a test that really plays to your strength. Okay, so all of this brings us to what's probably the most urgent question on your mind. What in the world does this August 7th, 2025 deadline mean for me? My tests and my application. Getting these transition rules right is absolutely vital, okay? Listen up, because this part is critical. If you take your test before August 7th, 2025, your result is good for 3 whole years. Under the old rules, let me say that again. The old rules show a score of 79 across the board. That still gets you superior English points. But if you test on or after that date, boom! You have to meet those tough, new skill by skill scores we just talked about. So getting that test done before the deadline? It could be a massive strategic win for you. So with all that information swirling around, what's your actual game plan? Well, the right strategy really boils down to just one thing. When you're planning to sit for that test, all right? If you're taking your test before the August 2025 deadline, your strategy is pretty simple. Get it done now, seriously. This is your golden window of opportunity to lock in a proficient or superior score. While the rules are simpler, if you do that, you get to completely sidestep those much tougher speaking and writing hurdles for the next 3 years. But if you know you're going to be testing after the deadline, your whole strategy has to pivot. Your one top of the list priority becomes mastering speaking and writing. That's where you need to put your energy. You can kind of leverage the fact that the listening and reading targets are lower, but you also need to start prepping for those too. New speaking question formats. And frankly, you should probably take a serious look at whether another test, maybe IELTS or TOEFL, might now be a better fit for your personal skill set. At the end of the day, even though these changes are tough, there's a clear logic here. The Australian government really wants to make sure that new migrants have the practical real-world communication skills they need to actually thrive in their new lives and jobs. This whole thing is a shift towards what you can actually do with the language, not just what you know. And that really leaves us with the final and most important question you need to be asking yourself right now. With this new intense spotlight shining directly on speaking and writing, you need to take a good hard look at your own abilities. Which test, whether it's IELTS, TOEFL, or maybe one of the new ones? Which test is truly the right one for you? Which one gives you the best shot at success on your journey to Australia?